All right, welcome to the fourth and video of the evening. Second impressions vid in Utopia Must Fall. Defend humanity's last surviving metropolis from mysterious alien machinations. In this challenging base defense arcade shooter, featuring rapid upgrade progression, procedurally generated attack waves, dark humor, and laser sharp aesthetics. Um, so, yeah, where to start with this one? Um, right. Um, it itself bills as a vector flavored base defending arcade shooter. Like, um, so vector graphics. Like, there's a subject we haven't had to talk about on the program, mainly because vector graphics were in fashion for a very scant amount of time in the late 70s to early 80s. But some of the most iconic arcade games of all time were built out of. We're not going to get into the particulars of vector versus raster graphics because that's actually fairly technical and kind of boring. But they were, one of the things that you were able to do with vector graphics, and something that I was surprised to see faithfully replicated is the sharp contrast you can get with actual vector graphics. Because, in simple terms, the background is black, not any other colors. It's actual black. Now, there's an argument that how black you can achieve in the digital age, but that is neither here nor there. But you can see this game looks very, it's got that sharp contrast that a good vector game should have. So they've done their homework.
I could imagine playing this on an OLED display, and this would look amazing.
Indeed. And this would also be a representation of the later end of vector graphics because it's in color and actual color, as opposed to black and white where you'd have to put an overlay.
Yeah.
So it's close to Tempest and Star Wars the arcade game than, say, Asteroids in that regard. Now in terms of the arcade classics, you can see it's borrowing from a couple of well-known ones. The most obvious that probably jumps out is Missile Command, and or Asteroids, but those don't seem to be the main inspiration here. Which is a game that you probably aren't going to know unless you are a long-term watcher of lazy game reviews. That's Paratrooper for DOS. That's what this thing reminded me of more than anything else. And if you don't know what Paratrooper is, the short story is, well, it's it's a game where you are basically a cannon shooting down planes and paratroopers in an endless score. That's the basic structure here. I mean, only fused with the Missile Command city, just the one. Because you've also got a shield here, which you've got to defend. And of course, since this is actually a modern game that's, borrowing from the past, it's got to have some roguelike elements. And in this case, it's the progression system. Like you can see right here. This is roguelike as fuck here. in terms of
being able to choose your upgrades in between segments.
Yep. Also, the procedural generation thing, I think, is fairly roguelike at this stage. Or will get attributed to it. You know, so, you know, it's fine. It's just, it's truly the trend that has spread out to, like, all corners of the indie world. Because, you know, it's even in a game like this, which, you know, ordinarily would have no business having an upgrade system. You know, ordinarily you'd have a power-up system where things would be temporary. And they are in the sense that, you know, you die, you lose them. But, you know, they last, I suppose it depends on the power-up. They last, you know, the entire game, so to speak. You know, and as far as the gameplay goes, honestly, you know, how do I word this properly? Because this is the kind of game that honestly seems kind of hard to screw up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure there are ways to do it, but that feels like you would either have to be overwhelmingly incompetent or very, very bold.
Yeah.
Like, you know, trying to mix some radical new gameplay idea with this and it just didn't work out. Or, you know, just not understanding the very basics of gameplay mechanics. Because, you know, in spite of all the fancy graphics and modern day accoutrements, this is a pretty basic game. Like, this would have been a, you know, this would have been pretty basic for, you know, the late 70s, early 80s, which it's fine. And, you know, according to the early access notes, it can be addictive. Like, apparently one of their beta testers has logged in 100 hours, and I don't doubt that. I mean, you know, scored-based arcade games have their fans, have their dedicated players, you know, leaderboard battles and all that stuff. You know, a game like this will keep my interest for half an hour, and then I'll go on and play something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah, there's nothing against this. It's just I consider this to be some play for a little bit of time. You know, a few rounds. I die. I move on. Like, oh, you know, other, you know, in terms of how much game you get out of it, that's a subjective thing. In terms of more based, you know, it's to be a very solid shooter. And in terms of what needs to be added, a greater variety of apps and upgrades, automated defense battle drones, kind distortion weaponry, new enemies, bosses, and attack mechanics, and daily challenges. So it seems like there's still quite a bit of content to be added here. But it's got a solid foundation. You know, and unlike my first game here, this is ultra accessible. In fact, this is about the polar opposite of what I covered here today. In terms of pricing, right now it is going for $7, which is about $5 to $7 is what I would pay for this. in terms of what it gets, and they are saying that there will be a price increase at 1.0. How much that is, honestly, this game could probably go up to $10, maximum, even with the added bells and whistles. Like, I just can't see this game being justifiable past $10. Like, what about you, Petty? What are your impressions of Utopia Must Fall?
It's kind of interesting. I do kind of agree with you that I would probably get fairly bored with this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is kind of cool that because they're using actual black, if you did have an OLED display, it would basically be like you're playing a Vectrex or something like that from back in the day.
Right.
But, like, that novelty will definitely wear off after the first few runs.
Mm-hmm. I will say this game was a far sight better than the Vector Sector game I played in Atari 50. Like, both in terms of graphics, replicating the style, and in terms of like actual gameplay. But that's neither here nor there. That's just another vector-based tribute to the past that I happened to play recently at time of recording.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, mild recommendation at this stage, but in fact, you probably should pick it up now rather than later, because I don't know how much. Like, if they go to $12 or something like that, I wouldn't say pick it up then, even
I
with
guess
the
it
addition.
Yeah, I was about to say it really depends on additional content at that point. But we can't
No.
really evaluate on promises because
Right.
not every dev fulfills those promises, unfortunately.
Indeed. Anyway, with that in mind, I think that'll about do it for this review session. So, coming up on the week ahead, on Wednesday, May 14th, we maybe will be having Jonathan Silva of Sitara Studio. I say maybe because Dev was a bit iffy and has not been responding to my confirmation emails.
Oh boy.
So this is already looking like another case of, the developer just never gets back to us. Like,
Good thing the vault of Computer Chronicles is vast. I mean, wait, what?
I'm like, I've got something else in mind should it come to that.
Oh boy.
Like, anyway, we do have a Friday show this week, and I'm pleased to say they've confirmed already. We'll be having Mark Bannister of Fremana Game Studio, and we'll be talking about the game Codex Lost, a Souls-like pact with dark magic. The new open world spellcasting action RPG. The grimoires have been stolen. Civilization is in ruins. Rise, curator. Craft ancient elemental magics and challenge the great lords who threaten to fracture reality itself. Uncover the secrets and challenges of the central realms. Roam about the open fields. Delve into ancient tunnels. Plunder lost ruins and discover what mysteries lay in wait in its most hidden corners. Sounds like a rousing good time. So look for that on Friday. We also do have season finale of MSP happening this week. So with that in mind, until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.